Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hagel, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to begin by thanking you for your honorable service to our nation, for your personal sacrifice that you have put into standing and fighting for this country.
Thank you.
I would like to begin by addressing a question of process. In your prepared statements today, you described that you have given hundreds of speeches and interviews.
Yes.
This committee asked you in this process to submit those speeches in the last 5 years, and in response to that, you handed over a total of 4 speeches. In my view, that submission was facially insufficient for this committee to assess your record. Indeed, your financial disclosure revealed you had received paid honoraria in the past year for 12 speeches, and yet you did not even hand over those speeches for which you were paid substantial sums of money. Beyond that, 2 days ago, 6 senators, including Ranking Member Inhofe, sent you a letter asking for financial disclosure. You have not chosen to respond to that letter. That letter in particular asked about the private organizations that have paid you over the past 5 years and the degree to which any of those funding sources have come from foreign countries, foreign nationals, foreign sovereign debt funds. You chose not to respond to that letter. In my view, unless and until you respond to the requests of members of this committee does not have a proper record on which to assess your confirmation, and I think we need full disclosure and adequate time to assess that. Now, I'd like to ask initially a point of clarification. With respect to the International Criminal Court, do you believe the United States should become a party to the International Criminal Court?
Senator, may I quickly respond to your first comment?
No, I'd like you to answer my question. My time is limited.
That question is one that I am most likely not going to be dealing with as Secretary of Defense.
It's a simple question. Do you think we should be a member of the International Criminal Court? Yes, sir. I'm asking for your judgment on whether the United States should be a party.
I support where the United States is today.
So we are not a party today. You think we should not be a party. Is that a correct statement of your position?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to an interview you did in 2009 with Al Jazeera. And with the chairman's indulgence, if we can play an excerpt of that interview.
Leadership around the world.
This is Molly from London. Go ahead with your question.
Hello, sir. Good evening. It's a very good proposition. But first of all, I believe, very strongly I believe, the current leadership around the world, there is a moral failure going on. Unless they have a moral capacity to talk and do what they talk. For example, if you look at Palestine, there is a war crime and they are not dealing with it. But in Sudan, they are dealing with it and they are really biased justice. And if you look at Sri Lanka, the Tamils being killed, there is a genocidal war going on in Sri Lanka. Nothing being done. So there is a moral
Molly, what is your question with regards to the issue we're talking about, the reduction of nuclear weapons?
My question is that leaders, there is a total moral failure. Unless we bring these leaders to a moral standard, nothing can be done. That's my question. What do you think about it?
Okay, thank you. Let me put that to the Senator.
Well, I think you're exactly right, and I said in my opening statement that that leadership is critical because we know in life nothing is ever accomplished without leadership.
Now, in that excerpt, Senator Hagel, the caller suggests that the nation of Israel has committed war crimes. And your response to that was not to dispute that characterization, but indeed to describe what he said as, quote, well, I think that's exactly right. I'd like to ask you, do you think the nation of Israel has committed war crimes?
No, I do not, Senator. I'd want to look at the full context of the interview, but to answer your question, no.
I mean, the context of that question, we played the entirety of it, and I wanted to give you that context so you can hear the question and you can hear your response. I would suggest that a suggestion that Israel has committed war crimes is particularly offensive, given that the Jewish people suffered under the most horrific war crimes in the Holocaust. And I would also suggest that for the Secretary of Defense or a prospective Secretary of Defense not to take issue with that claim is highly troubling. I'd also point out, in 2006, your characterization of the nation of Israel's action, and that was in a speech on the floor of the Senate. You referred to Israel's military campaign against the terrorist group Hezbollah as a, quote, sickening slaughter. Now, I would suggest the characterizations. Do you think it's right that Israel was committing a, quote, sickening slaughter, as you said on the floor of the Senate?
Well, I think, again, I would want to read all of it, what I said. First, I've said many, many times, Senator, every nation has a right to defend itself. And
do you think a sickening slaughter would constitute a war crime?
No. Depends on they were attacked. Depends on many factors. If Israel was defending itself, there was slaughter going on both sides.
Does one typically characterize defending yourself against terrorism as a sickening slaughter?
No, but again, Senator, I'd want to look at everything because...
Okay, well, let's look at another excerpt from the same interview, if we can play the second excerpt.
We've got an email from Wendy Day. She writes to us from Georgia here in the United States, and she writes, can the rest of the world be persuaded to give up their arsenal when the image of the United States is that of the world's bully? Don't we indeed need to change the perception and the reality before asking folks to lay down their arms, nuclear or otherwise?
Mm-hmm. Well, her observation is a good one, and it's relevant. Yes, to her question.
Senator Hagel, do you think it's appropriate for the chief civilian leader of the U.S. military forces to agree with the statement that both the perception, quote, and the reality is that the United States is, quote, the world's bully?
I didn't hear her say that, by the way, the United States. And I think my comment was it's a relevant and good observation. I don't think I said that I agree with it.
With respect, I think the record speaks for itself. It was in writing that she said the U.S. is the world's bully, that it is the reality. And your response, you did say you agree with it. You said her observation is a good one, it's relevant. Yes to her question. You explicitly agreed with the characterization of the United States as the world's bully. And I would suggest that is not a characterization. I think the United States has spilled more blood, more treasure, standing for freedom, liberating people across the world, and to go on Al Jazeera, a foreign network, broadcasting propaganda to nations that are hostile to us, and to explicitly agree with the characterization of the United States as the world's bully, I would suggest is not the conduct one would expect of a Secretary of Defense.
Senator, she said that was an observation.
I will point out that her quote was the perception and the reality. And with that, my time has expired. I look forward to a second round of questioning.
Thank you.
Now, what we're going to do, given the fact that some of those tapes there they need to be transcribed to be made part of the record so that people can judge exactly what was said and what was asked. I heard that first question, by the way, as a response to the need for moral leadership. I didn't hear it the way the Senator Cruz did, but in any event, it's important that the words be transcribed so that they can be made part of the record. This is a rather unusual thing. I told Senator Cruz that I preferred that we have a transcript and that you be asked questions from a transcript, but that I didn't want to stop him from offering the tape of it, and he went ahead and did it. And in any event, I think fair thing now is that the transcript of each of those segments be made part of the record, and that we give also Senator Hagel an opportunity, should he want, either on this question or, by the way, on other questions, an opportunity to answer for the record in any way he might proceed as though he were answering questions for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be happy to provide a transcript, and we'll also be making public a link both to these excerpts and to the entire transcript so that anyone who wants can view it in its entirety and assess it in context.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you, Senator Cruz.
This has been a Sunfish production.